Acción, tu revista mensual de cine y series, con los mejores estrenos de cine, fichas y reportajes coleccionables, series de televisión y 4 pósters todos los meses. Búscala en tu kiosco.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this interview. Congratulations.
You are the... I look at you or the camera?
The camera better.
Okay.
No, yes, of course, me better, because if you look to the camera, it's...
That's what I think, but sometimes...
Not so much natural.
I just like to ask.
But first of all, thank you so much for the interview, and congratulations for the film. It's an amazing film. And it got yesterday, I was at the Auditorium Meliá watching it. It had a well-deserved ovation, standard ovation at the end.
Oh, wow.
So...
You saw it last night?
Yes, I saw it last night with a huge audience.
Yeah.
I saw you presenting the film.
Oh, thank you.
And we love it. It was huge. It was one of the most loved films this festival.
Oh, thank you.
So where does this idea come from? How does this film born?
The idea came to me as an image of this woman running through the woods in distress, and I knew she was the archetypal final girl from a horror film, you know? And I was compelled to tell her story, but I didn't know why. And over the course of months, as I continued to think about her, this woman in hospital scrubs running through the woods, I finally realized who she was. And as I realized who she was, she became very fascinating to me, and I wanted to make sure I told this full story about her. And so then I wrote the script, and I felt like this was just a different angle, you know, to approach the serial killer genre, and also the traditional archetype of the final girl, giving her more nuance and more agency and more layers.
Because this is a story when the film begins, we can think we know very well, but the characters are what made it completely different, right? So how's been developing both characters, not only our final girl, but the man that chased her, how it's been developing them, creating them in this particular universe?
It was interesting because if in the first chapter we show, which is chapter 3, they're tropes, they're archetypes, they're not layered, and they're not unique. We've seen those characters before, and the thing that was interesting to me and compelling about writing the story was that after chapter 3, when we get into the other chapters, I get to dig deeper into these characters and find nuance and gray area and complexity. And so the entire script for me was an exercise in finding complexity in 2 characters that are very traditional archetypes, and giving them more to do, and more to do emotionally. And so as the film goes on, we find out that their characters are more complex, and even their relationship is very complex.
But without these 2 actors, the film wouldn't work. So how hard was to find her and to find the demon? Because of course, they have to have great chemistry. They have to not only, I don't want to spoil anything, but in every chapter of the film. And they have to also work great alone when they are alone on screen. So how hard was to find Kyle and William?
It was very difficult. It took a long time to find the lady and the demon, and we found the lady first, and I was attracted to her as an actor because not only is she very good, but in our first meeting she said that she loved the character and she would defend the character to the death, and she was always making excuses for the character, and Kyle as well. When I met him, he really saw the point of view of the demon and wanted to excuse his faults. And so it was important to me that the actors loved their characters as much as I did, and so I could tell they would play the roles with earnestness and compassion, and so it took a long time, a few months, but once we found them, I got the two actors together for dinners and rehearsals, and as far as the chemistry, I just got lucky. I got very lucky that they were so well matched, and they trusted each other very much, and they trusted me, and so we were all willing to go to very dark places and interesting places, and I think they just really liked pushing the boundaries together. And I once again, sometimes the director gets lucky. I feel like I was very lucky.
Because these roles are both very physically and emotionally demanding, right? They have to put it all in the film. So
Yes.
I can only imagine for what you are talking about that with these two actors it was an easy task for them to put it all in the film.
They make it look easy because they're very, very good. But with the wrong actors, I agree with you, with the wrong actors, the movie would not work at all for me. And I think the movie really rests on their two performances.
What about shooting in 35 millimeters? Because I studied in film school, and what most people does not realize these days is that 35 millimeters still looks better than digital. It has more depth of color, even more resolution. So how hard was to do it? Because it's something really rare these days to shoot 35. Why did you choose to take that risk?
Well, I started making short films in 2008, so I've been doing it for a long time, and even then, everybody was shooting digital for low budget, shorter films, and I recognized the difference in the aesthetic back then, and I remember telling my producing partner, we have to find a way to shoot film, and so I'm used to doing it. I've shot movies on 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, 35 millimeter, 2 perf 35 millimeter, my first feature film in 2016, and so for me, by the time we got to this film, which is my second feature, it wasn't a choice. Like it was no. The only choice was what type of film to shoot, and Giovanni Ribisi, my cinematographer, had the same strong belief in film. So I will keep shooting film until they stop making it.
You just mentioned Giovanni Ribisi. We know him for his roles as an actor, but we are really surprised that he is such a talented DOP. So, because the aesthetic of the film, the use of color, so how was to find him and to create with him this universe of Strange Darling that is so unique?
Thank you. Giovanni and I met at the American Society of Cinematographers Awards about 5-6 years ago, and I love him as an actor, so I was trying to get him to act in things for me, and he said, what I really love to do is shoot movies, and so he took me to his studio and showed me what he was capable of, and it was so good and so inspiring that we talked about doing a movie together, and he said, I'd love to do a movie with you, but only if it's a fantastic script. So I sent him many scripts over the course of years, and he liked this one. And so I was very, very, also just like with the casting, with the DP, I was very lucky to have him want to do this film.
And how was to create, because as I said, it's a really unique look for this film. The use of color, the use of the outside. There is no many outside places, but the use of the light. And it's a horror film or a thriller that happens broad light. It's not in the dark. The night is for the. I don't want to spoil anything, but for the romantic part, the love part, but we have the thrills when the sun is up. So how was to develop that? Because it's not easy to thrill an audience playing live.
No, yeah, the romance was always supposed to be in the darkness and the horror in broad daylight. And so, a lot of that had to do with Giovanni and his ability to decide what choices to make to get that look. We talked about fairy tale. We talked about saturated primary colors and blood on the flower bed is what we said, which is, we wanted the movie to be beautiful, like Blue Velvet or The Red Shoes or, The Devils, these movies that we'd seen that were beautiful on the surface but had darkness bubbling up beneath. And then in the darkness, there's beauty. So it was very deliberate, and Giovanni, shot on 50D film stock for some of the scenes, which is a very slow film stock that has more saturated colors, but you have to use more light, and it was very difficult, but we knew it would be worth it. And then our production designer, Priscilla Elliott, has a lot to do with those colors and that approach as well. We would speak to her, and she got us very disciplined in controlling color, making sure that the proper colors were in each scene and they were used as a weapon. So everything you see in every frame was very, very deliberate, and the choice was made.
One of the many things that amazed me from the film is that a huge amount of the film happens behind closed doors, in small spaces, in a room, inside a car, inside the house that is a huge mansion. It's a house in the country, it's a farm, but it's not a huge farm. It's hard to shoot inside walls to make it always fresh for the audience, that they don't feel exhausted of seeing the same shots, the same frames. So how hard was for you to keep it fresh during these scenes, because the very first chapters happens inside the car. So it's not easy to make it fresh and keep things going and keep the audience invested in the story visually.
It's a very good question. I'm highly influenced by the early films of Roman Polanski. And so when I watch movies like Knife in the Water, Cul-de-sac, Repulsion, even the later films like Death and the Maiden and Carnage, those were highly influential to me growing up, watching these movies. And even Rosemary's Baby, it's a bigger movie, but it all takes place in mostly one location. And so I always, as a student of film, as somebody who watched movies over and over again, I was always fascinated with how a director and a cinematographer and a production designer could make a movie interesting and dynamic, even though it's in one location. And so it's just sort of what I'm drawn to, and at some point I'll do a movie with more locations and that feels bigger, but the claustrophobia here, the intimacy, was what I was drawn to, and it was highly influenced by those movies I mentioned.
Sorry.
No.
And there's also the way you told the story. These chapters that they are not linear, you tell it as you want. Is that something that was in the script from the beginning? That way of telling the story, that beginning with chapter 3 and then jump to chapter 5 and then back to chapter 1. Was that something that was always there?
It's always in the script. The movie came to me in that order, and I knew if it wasn't told in that order, it would be almost conventional. The characters are still interesting to me, but the narrative is not nearly as interesting in sequence, and it came to me in the order in which you see it when I was writing.
last question, what about the future? What can we expect from the future? Next project? Maybe this is the beginning of a collaboration with Giovanni as the DOP in the future?
Oh, I would love to work with Giovanni again. He's also a pretty famous actor, so who knows, he might be working on Avatar 10 or something, or the new Kevin Costner movie. I don't know. But I know he loves to shoot movies, and I know we plan to do something together again. So hopefully we will. And I wrote a movie that I didn't direct. It was a Stephen King adaptation of The Long Walk for Francis Lawrence, who made The Hunger Games and I Am Legend, and he's
Constantine.
Yeah, and Constantine. Yeah, and he's a very, very talented director and a great guy, and so I'm honored to have written a movie for him, and that movie, is in post-production right now, and then I have plans now to make my new feature next year, and I'm almost finished writing it, and so if all goes according to plan, hopefully I'll be shooting in the spring or the summer.
Good luck with that. Break a leg with that.
Thank you.
And congratulations for this amazing film that conquered our hearts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Acción, tu revista mensual de cine y series, con los mejores estrenos de cine, fichas y reportajes coleccionables, series de televisión y 4 pósters todos los meses. Búscala en tu kiosco.